So, what's on my mind today? Literally the four video models that have dropped in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So, we've got Sora, pika.art, Google VO2, and Genesis. And all of them very different approaches to maybe a similar problem or a similar space or industry. And definitely something that everybody in the AI, art, and video creative community is fascinated by. So, Sora coming in 3 to 4 weeks ago, kind of giving a little controversy here. It's been people have been waiting for it since February, and we finally got it. And it's just kind of pushed the boundary, in my opinion, on what kind of features that you would expect in a video model, right? Where they've played around with doing more features that give you more granularity on what you can do. But at the same time, a lot of people on the internet are kind of like, hey, I don't like that it doesn't allow me to one shot or do image to video in quite the same way or as quickly as the other models. Controversial, definitely. Then you got Google VO2, which isn't even out yet, right? But people are already comparing it to Sora. So it feels like Google literally just like jumped on OpenAI in their 12 days week, or 2 weeks. Because last year, OpenAI did the same thing to Google during their kind of like Google Day or what have you, O1 Day or what have you. And so like here comes Google dropping on top. They've got like, Gemini Flash, etc., and then VO2 as well. Coming in alpha beta, so no, very few people, a handful of people have access, but clearly showing some pretty cool, very like high fidelity, very high quality video outputs. And then we got pika.art, which is with its own kind of unique approach. I would say that maybe the best in terms of character consistency right now and object consistency, something that a lot of even the best players have struggle with a bit. And then their kind of social media approach, which in general I find to be really interesting. And I wonder, where that's headed. And then lastly, out of nowhere comes Genesis, or maybe not out of nowhere to people who are researching this field, like using 3D engines to create video, which is like out of this world, something that none of the current players are showing in terms of the precision, etc. And we'll see whether or not that gets into or when that definitely gets into the hands of creators, and whether or not it's going to be used by creators, because really it was designed for a robot. So, we're going to dive into how each of these actually work, and we'll see what it all means, right? So like, and there's a lot to mine here, right? Now, here we are in Sora, right? Sora is now in access. Anybody can use it right now. So pretty nice. And of course, like people are complaining that it doesn't have as much character consistency, etc. But at the same time, like there's, of course, I've done videos about this where, there's a storyboard feature where you can go in and you can create different keyframes and you can extend those keyframes, etc. And you can even generate 20 seconds and like you can essentially guide every single frame of this. It's not perfect. It's definitely hallucinating, but this is a very different approach. And of course, there's other things in here which people don't really talk about so much, but blend and remix are very powerful features which allow you to kind of like meld styles, change objects, and all of that. And these are things that we just don't see in the other current players, which I'm curious, like it remains to be seen like how this will play out as the video models get better, right? Like even if Google VO2 is showing better video outputs allegedly, how much control do I have over those video outputs based on the feature set that I have, right? Google, in my opinion, not historically very strong at product, even though, if you look at Gmail and things like that, yes, great products, Pixel, etc. But at the same time, Google hasn't had as much discipline if we compare it to companies like, say, Apple, right? Where Apple has, is a very design product centric company, which leads via design and then trickles into technology. Steve Jobs very famously is like putting the technology first is not the right way, thinking about the user first. And Google has kind of been a technology company. And in some ways, like that is an advantage that they have, right? Where they are technology first. And as a result, build these very, powerful, technologically advanced products, Waymo being an example of that, right? Where that technological mindset plays a huge part. Now, in its success, right? And maybe that's going to be true in video and anything related to machine learning because that advantage can accrue. Now, speaking of Google, they did release Google VO2, and it's showing via a lot of comparisons very, very nice, stable and natural fluid motion, which, something that we have rarely seen in other products, other video outputs, even Hailua, which I would argue, and Kling, which I'd argue are like the two main market leaders in terms of like image to video output, have generally been outputting things that are, it leans into slow mo, right? Whereas here, like, look at this. This is like looks like fairly natural, fluid motion, and it's clearly AI in some ways. Like the people around are kind of flexing. There's no one in the car, but look at how fast that is. It's rare that you would get this kind of fast motion in most video model outputs, and so like that's pretty cool. Even this is pretty fast. Although you can usually get, like, when it looks like a video game, you can usually get some pretty fluid motion. And people have been also comparing the two, right? When you look at, even Marquez Brownlee has been looking at, comparing Sora, here is Sora in this case versus, and this is pretty nice. No, not gonna lie, right? This is pretty nice. Let's do the same. So here's VO doing this output, Sora doing this output. We've looked at this a little bit before. And here we've got Sora kind of messing up the chopping, VO keeping that physics consistency really well. So like, here VO also doing kind of natural movement in the bird face here. So pretty cool. So this is kind of where I'm very curious, how that's going to play out when it actually goes to public, and if it will even go to public. I'm not clear. I mean, Google definitely has that YouTube advantage. It has arguably the biggest repository of video in the world. How does that play a part in their data? How does that play a part in what they're using to teach their model to generate all this kind of stuff? So like that's such a huge advantage. And especially this tomato one is kind of stark, right? But at the same time, to what extent are these being cherry picked, right, by all these different influencers out there and people who have access? Like, to what extent is Google VO2 doing a better job of like one-shotting things, or is it that people are just grabbing the best and then grabbing the worst from Sora, right? So that's unclear to me. And obviously, like, depending on, we've talked about this before, that AI is a craft. And so to the extent that how to use these tools, that influences what you're going to get out of these tools as well, right? So this is where I am sprinkling a little skepticism. At the same time, like, wow, just so impressive from what they're able to do, right? And then we got Pika Labs, which is just so cool. They are just doing a very, very specific, and by the way, it's free for until like December 22nd, so you can play with it. But they're just doing a lot of things with consistency, which are really, really cool. Min Choi, you should follow him on Twitter if you haven't already. He's doing a great job of like kind of tracking all the creators and tools. But like, as you can see, like people are uploading this image and this background and able to generate this, like, just really impressive consistency. And in my opinion, arguably some of the best consistency that I've seen in any of these video models. Like, you're uploading a jacket and the model and the background, and you're getting exactly what this is. Although I will say that it is pretty digital art-y, so to speak. Like, even this render isn't as smooth, I would say, as what we're seeing out of Google VO2 and Sora. That maybe is something that you could just catch up on in a short period of time. I mean, look at this. I mean, you've got this original painting and you got this person walking into it. I mean, this is just mind-blowingly impressive stuff from Pika. So in my opinion, such an interesting, frontier that we might see here with Pika and where it's going to go, and their approach being maybe arguably more specific than the other ones, where they're just trying to get a general output, it feels like. It's all feelings, really. And then they even have like really nice high quality output as well. So really impressive, right? Really impressive from Pika. So if the week didn't just end at that, see, like, Min Choi's putting this on December 19th. Then you had Zhou Xian, who posted this December 18th, Genesis, which is, according to here, Genesis is after a 24-month large-scale research collaboration involving over 20 research labs, a generative physics engine able to generate 4D dynamical worlds powered by a physics simulation platform designed for general-purpose robotics and physical AI applications. So the interesting thing to me, before we start digging into it, is that this isn't even for video models. They don't even see themselves necessarily, or don't mention here that they're competing with the Runways, the Lumas, the Google VO2s, Pikas, Soras of the world. They seem to be approaching this from a robotics and 4D dynamic world perspective for a different type of research. So that's like really interesting to me. And yet we're getting something that is arguably more high fidelity than everything we've seen, as well as like very modular in a way that is just so impressive. So for me, like this is inspiring because here's academia, right? Like Zhou Xian is a research scientist in its CMU robotics, which is, this is an academic institution, like really cool. And this is research labs collaborating, as opposed to all of these. Sora is OpenAI, which is money from Microsoft. Pika is an $80 million funded startup. VO2 is obviously multi-trillion-dollar Google. And so like here we've got a lot of big funding, and probably there's a lot of funding in here as well, but this is a group of research labs which pulled this off, and they open sourced it immediately when Zhou Xian released this. So super cool. And I thought it was really interesting also that, what he showed here in this video, and let's watch the whole one because this is really interesting, but like, is that it starts with a Heineken bottle, which is really cool, right? So let's start from the beginning. So first of all, like using text to generate what we are seeing right now is insane. And I love that it's a Heineken bottle, which immediately makes me think maybe they're not stating that they're trying to use this for a commercial. Like they're trying to say that it's a physics engine, but like this is a Heineken bottle, right? Like why Heineken? Huge brand. So then he like text prompts, or the text prompt, and it gives all of this information here, which is insane, right? Insane. Then look at this. Camera zooms in and shifts to microscopic mode, revealing the underlying molecular representation. What? What? Like insanity. So like, if they can actually pull off what they're saying that they can pull off here, this would be absolutely mesmerizing, right? Like, how are they how are they doing this? When do we get access to this? Can we use this for film? How does this integrate with all the other models that are out there? Like my questions go on and on, right? Like I just can't imagine where all of this goes and how this influences the current model of the way that we think about video models, which is image to video mainly, or text to video, and some editing. Like now maybe I can go really granular and like do something specific with this plant, right? And have that do something. Look at that. Rotate the plant's base back and forth. Like this is insane, right? And then here, of course, what they're saying that they're wanting using it for is robotics. But of course, they're able to generate these worlds that can be filmed, as we can see here. So what, how useful is this in the real world of filmmaking? And will this matter in terms of filmmaking at all? I don't know. Or maybe it's just going to be relegated to robotics research, but I doubt that just because of what the potential is here. I mean, when I saw this, I was thinking, wow, I wonder what is Google and what does OpenAI, what do they think about this kind of stuff and what's next? Like, how are they going to integrate this kind of technology and this research in their stuff, right? Why wouldn't they, right? So just amazing, just amazing. So, and of course, these are all the benchmarks that are pretty interesting. But Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure even what to think of this, where this is going to head, what this means for everybody in the space. Um, I mean, I'm really excited to see what comes out from this, and what we get and when we get to play with it. They already put it on open source, and so like it's just out there now, right? People are going to be able to integrate this or what have you. I mean, I'm not technical enough to fully understand, but I mean, look at this kind of stuff, right? It's just very, very impressive. Very impressive. And, probably why I'm still on Twitter. I mean, you get people announcing this kind of stuff on Twitter. So, anyway, those are the four things that came out, like, literally weeks before Christmas. So, it's hard to imagine what 2025 is going to look like with all of these innovations. And we probably have only scratched the surface of what is coming, what's out there. Again, I think 2025 is going to be nuts. I would not be surprised that by mid to the end of 2025 we're going to see a lot of mainstream usage of these tools. They're going to get a lot better. There's going to be a lot more progress. I mean, just thinking about how coding is being impacted by Claude and OpenAI, and how developers are using AI more and more to move faster. How does that impact the products that we see on a daily basis? Like, to what extent is AI code being used to help projects like this move faster? And so, I think we still barely scratch the surface, right? Like, the amount of people who use ChatGPT and applications like that is still minuscule, and even smaller the group of people who are using video AI to generate things like short films, commercials, etc. So, I don't know. I'm really excited. Obviously, it's also kind of scary. We'll talk about that in other videos, but those are the kind of 4 different innovations that are really interesting to kind of cap the year. Hopefully nothing else comes and we can have some rest, but I highly doubt it. This is AI. So see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.